Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Economics Series. For half a century, Islamic economics has promised to build a whole new financial world, one that's based on justice and faith. But what if that entire project is built on a cracked foundation? Today, we're going to dig into why its own top scholars are warning of a deep, serious crisis.
We're talking about a field that has inspired billions, right? A real alternative to capitalism and communism. But today, the most urgent question isn't coming from critics on the outside. No, it's coming from the very experts who built the field. They're the ones sounding the alarm, and we really need to understand why.
And this isn't just some quiet concern whispered in the hallways. A renowned scholar, Zubair Hasan, opened a major chapter on methodology with this bombshell of a question. He asks, point blank, if the entire discipline is even worth discussing anymore. Just think about that for a second. It's a question that cuts right to the heart of a debate among experts who've dedicated their lives to this very project.
So what exactly is this crisis? Well, it's not about a lack of effort or a shortage of conferences, that's for sure. It's something much, much deeper, a fundamental crisis of identity and purpose that's been brewing for decades. So let's break down what that really means.
At its core, the problem is this massive disconnect. You see, on one side, you have the grand vision of Islamic economics, a totally distinct system built on equity and justice. But on the other side, you have what's actually being produced in academic circles. The promise just hasn't materialized, and the big question from scholars is, why?
The answer, according to many of these top scholars, lies in a fundamental conflict of ideas. They call it a methodological mismatch, and it's basically a clash between two completely different ways of seeing the world. To really get a handle on the crisis, you have to understand this clash.
This right here, this really gets to the heart of the divide. See, mainstream economics tries to be a positive science. It just describes the world as it is, and it aims to be value neutral. But Islamic economics is inherently normative. It's not just about describing reality, it's about actively shaping reality to match what it ought to be, based on guidance from its primary sources, the Quran and Sunnah. For Islamic economics, morality isn't some afterthought. It's the entire foundation.
And this just illustrates the problem perfectly. As the scholar Asad Zaman puts it, it's like trying to mix fire and water. You've got researchers using the tools, the theories, the assumptions of a secular, value-neutral system to try and build a God-centered, value-driven one. You can see the problem, right? The foundations are totally incompatible, and it's led to a ton of confusion and a real lack of progress.
Okay, so let's look at one of the most damaging symptoms of this mismatch. It's a phenomenon that scholar Zubair Hasan calls the econometric syndrome, and it shows just how far the discipline has drifted by borrowing from the mainstream. So what in the world is this syndrome? Well, it's this obsession with using super complex mathematical models, not because they actually solve a real-world problem or come from Islamic principles, but simply because they look sophisticated. They've become, as Hasan says, a symbol of knowledge and scholarship, even when they're completely disconnected from the actual goals of Islamic economics. And the consequences of this are pretty severe. This syndrome creates a publish or perish culture where researchers are just trying to get published, often in predatory journals. They'll just grab a model from a mainstream Western paper, tweak it a tiny bit, and apply it uncritically to an Islamic context. And the result? A mountain of research that doesn't advance the field, doesn't offer practical solutions, and, worst of all, it completely stifles the creative, foundational thinking that is so desperately needed.
So how did we even get to this point? This crisis didn't happen overnight. To understand it, we need to look at the history. The scholar Asad Zaman gives us some fascinating context by breaking down the evolution of Islamic economics into three distinct generations.
The first generation, from about 1950 to 75, they had a revolutionary spirit. They wanted to create something entirely new. Then came the second generation, from 75 to 90, and they took a totally different path. They tried to Islamize existing models, basically taking capitalist frameworks and dispatching them with Islamic concepts. And according to Zaman, this is exactly where things went wrong. The current, or third generation, is a direct reaction to that failure, and they're calling for a complete return to the drawing board.
The key takeaway here is that the strategy of imitation and adaptation has flat out failed. Simply trying to force-fit Islamic principles into a foreign, secular framework is what created the very crisis we're talking about today. It's pretty clear now that to fulfill the original vision, a fundamentally new approach is required. So what is this new approach? While the answer isn't about more patching or modifying, it's about building from the ground up, starting with the most basic principles of the Islamic tradition. It's a call to establish what is known as usul al-iqtisad,
which literally means the foundational roots of economics.
This diagram really is the heart of the proposed solution. You see, for decades, the approach has been to start with mainstream economic models and try to work inwards, trying to fit Islam into them. This new model does the complete opposite. It starts from the very core of the Islamic tradition, its worldview, and it builds outwards. It's a total, radical reversal of the methodology we've been seeing.
So let's look at these roots. At the very center, you have the Islamic worldview, the core understanding of our purpose and our place in the universe. From that core worldview, everything else flows. The doctrine and principles that shape the system, the epistemology or the theory of how we even acquire knowledge, and of course, the fundamental values that guide all actions. These are the non-negotiables. Everything else has to grow from here.
And this is the ultimate takeaway. True authenticity isn't achieved by just slapping an Islamic label onto some Western idea. It can only be achieved when the theories, the models, and the policies are a natural, organic outgrowth of these foundational principles. It's a huge shift from just imitating to genuine, ground-up innovation.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The field is at a crossroads, facing a crisis born from this deep methodological conflict. The proposed solution is a radical one, to stop borrowing and start building from an authentic, organic foundation. But this raises the ultimate question. After 50 years of trying to adapt the old, does the field have the courage and the creativity to build something truly new? The answer to that is going to define the future of Islamic economics for the next half-century. See you in the next one. Subscribe, like, and comment.